Happy spring. Happy fall to those down under. Lovely to be with you. Please sign up for the retreat, May 12th through the 14th. Retreats, of course, are a powerful opportunity to awaken and to heal. And so I hope you can join. All right. Well, let's see if there's any new faces here. I think everyone's been around for a little bit. Oh, yeah, there are a couple new faces. So I'll offer a teaching for the next 15, 20 minutes or so. Then we'll do sharing time where you can share what's going on in your experience. And then we'll do questions at the end. Okay, now I'll turn off the recording for the sharing part. So we just finished our chakra series. And so if you're interested, if you missed any of them, they're all on YouTube. And you can kind of go through each chakra center and see what's, how it relates to you and your experience. But today, what I'd like to speak about is our relationship with our Soma. Soma is just a fancy word for our body, the consciousness of our body. Now, in most spiritual traditions, the body is ignored, the body is denied. But in the path of Kundalini Awakening, the body must be deeply respected, deeply honored. The consciousness of the body must be deeply honored. And so, let's talk about this a little bit. That, what's happening with Kundalini is basically God is coming into human form and wanting to live in matter, in human form. God is waking up in the physicality of our being. Now, if you are disconnected from the physicality of your being, you're probably going to have lots of issues with pain, with terror, with anxiety, with fear, and just forces like of pressure and of intensity. Now, in the modern age, so many of us, we don't actually live in our bodies. We're lost in, this, like cyberspace. We're lost in internet worlds. We're lost in anything but the here and now. Now, in a group like this, the whole focus is on being in your body. And so I'm going to invite you just to take a moment as I'm speaking, as we're meeting through the internet, and to feel into your body and ask, how is my body doing right now? The most basic question we can ask, a spiritual and healing perspective, is my body relaxed? If you get nothing out of anything else I say today, I want you to stay with this question. Is my body relaxed? How can I help it relax more fully? Now, when the body is relaxed, Kundalini is very happy because it can flow. It can flow in a very fluid way and in a smooth way. Now, I'm going to use a metaphor here. I live in Colorado, of course, and the rivers that we have here are full of rocks. They're full of boulders. Like if you go to, if you go visit, say, for example, the Mississippi River, that river is not full of rocks and boulders. It is a giant trench that has been cut through the mud. So there's like soft sand at the bottom of this river. And, the massive amount of water, the Mississippi River, can flow fluidly, smoothly. When you look at the Mississippi, there's no waves. It's just this fluid, like glass-like, just giant stream of water. When you go down, down the street from my house, you look at the Animas River, and it's white. It has rapids. Like you jump in that river, and you'll get knocked around by rocks. It's very, people come and do whitewater rafting in this river. Now, if you keep following, like my rivers out west here, there's a river north of me, the Colorado River. It starts out really, really rocky in all kinds of places. But when it gets over to like the Moab area, again, where the river is deep and it's been cut, again, like you'll get into some sections that are really smooth and glass-like. And so the metaphor I'm using here, like if our body is full of rocks, if it's full of tension, if we have all kinds of psychological pain and karma in our body, the consciousness, the energy of Kundalini is going to have a lot of trouble flowing through you. And it's going to create a great deal of havoc. And so the primary teaching with the body is, can we do anything and everything to help the body relax and to help our body feel safe? The first two tenets of working with the body is helping it to relax, helping it feel safe through providing a good environment for the body. But also one way we can help our body to feel safe is simply by doing deep, full belly breaths, like breathing deeply into the belly. Into the belly. You have to forgive me if you can hear, I got a little background noise. I think I've got one of the neighbors working a chipper or something. But the more relaxed and safe the body is, the happier Kundalini is going to be. Now, the third thing I'll say about the body is the body wants also to feel strong and empowered. Now, if we are, if the body doesn't feel safe, the body doesn't feel strong, it's going to be very easy for us to get stuck in like states of being a victim. It's going to be very easy to be stuck in states of fear and panic. But when we are connected to our strength, when we're connected to our power, when our body feels primarily safe and trusting, we can receive this Kundalini energy. And again, and it flows, and we're more likely to feel bliss, spaciousness, and freedom. But if we feel disconnected from our power, from our Soma, like the strength of our Soma, if the Soma doesn't feel safe, it clenches, it's tense, and it's going to be hard because we're going to have like all this energy, like all that energy of the Mississippi River. That's what Kundalini is, wanting to flow through a system that's like squeezing and tight and tense. And so we want to have an intimate relationship with our body. Yesterday or maybe it was the day before, I can't remember, I was at the store. And lately God keeps showing me these moms at the store and they're pushing the cart. And then they have a teenage daughter that are just walking through the store, going like this. And I don't know, they walk and they scroll at the same time. And it's like they're kind of following their mom and kind of scrolling and, no idea who's around them. And they're just lost in, again, the land of the internet. Like that's not going to work for the Kundalini. That's not going to work on the path of spiritual awakening. You need to be here and now. You need to be connected to your strength and your power. And furthermore, we're going to have to be sensitive, deeply in tune and in touch with our body. Now, one of the thoughts that I had for today is that all illness is psychosomatic. Now, of course, that's a blanket generalization. And of course, that's not 100% true. We can get Lyme disease, we can get COVID, these types of things. They're not psychosomatic. But the body's response to illness, like our psychosomatic nature, has such an influence on how sick we get. Like the time I got COVID, I was deeply stressed in life. And that's one of the reasons that I got so sick from COVID was because my body was so utterly stressed. I had a big trauma happen with one of my kids. And I was really suffering because, what had happened to one of my kids, and I couldn't help them. And so when the virus hit my body again, like I got really sick. And so with Kundalini, it's going to be the same thing. If you're deeply stressed in Kundalini awakens within you spontaneously, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to have a hard time. And one of the demands of Kundalini, beyond helping your body feel safe and relaxed and connected to your power, is that you're going to be highly sensitive. You need to be highly sensitive and in touch with your body. And so it's important to pay close attention to, of course, the foods we ingest, the drinks we put in our mouth. Of course, like Kundalini is not going to be happy if we're smoking cigarettes or other types of things. If we're taking all kinds of wild drugs and things, like, it's a good chance that it's going to really aggravate the Kundalini. And alcohol will aggravate Kundalini one way. But, if we eat Burger King every day, if we're eating fast food every day, that's actually going to aggravate Kundalini a different type of way. Now, both of those energies, like let's say the energy of fast food or the energy of alcohol, are going to have a dumbing down effect. They're going to have a dampening effect on the energy, but in different ways. In different ways. And the same is true, like if we're putting lots of stimulants in our body. Like one day, I can remember this was 15 years ago or so, and maybe it was even longer ago, but the Kundalini had woken up within me and was kind of overwhelmed by the energy. And I tried the Ayurvedic herb, ashwagandha, and it sent me through the roof. Like it was a total disaster, just like completely messed up my energy because I had way too much energy already. And then I added this herb, and again, it just totally agitated the Kundalini. Now, somebody else, and I'm not saying ashwagandha is bad or wrong, but like for someone else, if we're deeply in touch with our energy and our energy feels kind of dead or feels kind of numb, or we have a lot of like malaise or heaviness in our consciousness, and we're deeply sensitive and we feel into our body, and our body may be greatly supported by ashwagandha. Ultimately, so it's not like we need to follow some certain rule that, this herb is bad, don't do that. I mean, generally speaking, smoking and like alcohol and drugs aren't going to be supportive for Kundalini. Generally speaking, a good, wholesome, whole foods diet is going to be supportive for Kundalini. But the way Kundalini, what Kundalini wants for you in a relationship with your body is for you to have this intimate relationship, not a spaced out relationship, which is how most people relate to their body, not like an old Buddhist relationship where we look at the body, as an obstacle or there's something wrong with it, or some traditions even teach like, that our body and our mind are like almost like they're like a mistake. That's not going to jive well with what God is trying to do within you. We want to really listen to our body. And this is an art form of listening to our body, not from a place of mentality, but we listen with the fullness of our consciousness. We invite our consciousness to inhabit the entirety of the body, not just the 7 chakra centers, but the entirety of the body. I want your consciousness in the bottom of your feet, the palms of your hands, in your hamstrings, in your inner thighs, in your sacrum and your pelvis, the top of your head and the sides of your head. And to invite the consciousness to be awake throughout the body, to listen to the body, because so often the Kundalini is trying to channel itself through the body, and the body is resisting it. And we're up in our head and we're saying, I don't know what's going on, why this Kundalini won't flow. I don't know why I'm in so much pain. Ultimately, with Kundalini, like with the awakening aspect of it, like at the end of the journey, we are rarely going to say, I don't know why my energy is stuck. We're going to know exactly why it's stuck. We're going to know exactly where it is stuck. And if we don't know this, it means we are disconnected. Like we haven't inhabited, we haven't fully incarnated into this body. And so anytime you hear yourself or notice yourself being really confused, that's a sign that you need to become more intimate with whatever it is, like whatever it is you're confused about, or the point in your body where you feel confusion. So if there's clenching in your gut, like I want you to know, like, why am I clenching? Am I fearing something in life? Am I fearing this energy? Am I fighting with something in the present moment? Am I fighting with something from the past? So often, like I'll work with people, we'll work somatically, and they'll find, oh, look at this. We're fighting with something from 20 years ago. And by fighting, I mean, there's like some level of resistance or holding on or armoring around. I'll tell you a silly story that, like, when I was young, maybe I was 14 or 15, I had an older brother, and he's a pretty wild guy. He was like a big partier. He used to like have these giant parties at my house, our childhood home, when the parents were going, like massive party, like 200 people would come. And often I would have just like my friends over, like we used to all hang out at my house, like a lot of times was a cool house because my parents gave us a lot of independence. Something happened where my brother and I got in a disagreement. He was really drunk, was basically what it was. And there was this moment when, this is a little graphic, but I'm just going to tell you just for fun. I was a long-haired hippie. He took his hand and like grabbed my hair, and he smashed my head, like literally my forehead, into the car, and it put a dent in the car. So that's like how hard he smashed me. We were young kids, like I was tough, he's tough, like whatever, like. And, I remember just seeing the dent, go into the car, and then, my head coming out, and then he let me go and he ran off and, got in some trouble, or I think the police showed up. There was some disaster. Now, the next day when I saw him, and he was no longer drunk. And look, I knew my brother loved me, and I loved my brother, and I love my brother forever. He was not a violent guy. He just had a bad moment in history with alcohol and something. I immediately forgave him, and I have total love for him, and I feel completely safe around him because I'm connected to my strength. I'm in my own power. I'm not holding on. I see him for who he is in his truth. He had a bad moment in his history. Now, someone else, who goes through a similar experience, they may have taken that moment and been traumatized and held on to, like put up a wall, like an armoring around their heart in relationship to this brother, and never forgive that person. And to be honest, like that's a fair egoic response, to kind of hold on to armor, say this person is dangerous, they harmed me, that's domestic violence. It's like, And that may all be true. But when we hold on to that armor for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, we suffer. We suffer. And if Kundalini comes into a body that is deeply honored, we're going to have a heck of a time. A heck of a time. And please, no one misinterpret my story. If anyone's around domestic abuse or violence, please leave, set a boundary, call the police, do all that stuff. We were kids, okay? So that, and my brother's a safe guy. And I know that. I'm just trying to make this point about the ego. It's like sometimes it gets stuck in this habit. But a big part of spiritual awakening is for you to wake up to, let's say, this depth of awareness. And from this depth of awareness, do your healing work with your body, with your Soma. To talk to the Soma, to invite it to open, to relax, to let go, to come into reality. And as we do so, then the Soma begins to wake up. It has its own consciousness that can wake up. And as this consciousness wakes up, the energy can flow through it in an amazingly blissful way, in a euphoric way, in a way where we can experience our body not as an obstacle, but literally as a bliss being, a bliss vehicle. And so this is the ultimate gift of Kundalini, this ultimate gift of the Soma as it wakes up, as we discover the truth of the body, this form, this temple. It's not just a vehicle for resistance, a vehicle for ego, a vehicle for fight or flight, but it becomes this incredible thing. Like the body is literally a temple. And if we want to relate to our body as a temple, the first thing we need to do is we need to treat it with respect. We need to help it to heal. And that's very much what most of you are doing in this group, is you're beginning to teach, treat your body with respect and to help it to heal, help it to relax, bring it into the present moment. To bring it into the present moment. Now I can say, like in a similar way, like I had told you this beautiful story about my brother smashing my head and then me forgiving him and letting it all go and being in a space of love. There's different aspects of my body which have held on real tight. Like there's aspects of my body that belong to my ancestors, that has all their karma in it. And I can feel their karma in it. And I can feel the denseness and the heaviness of that karma. I can feel the parts of it that hold on so tightly, intensely, out of fear, out of a place of living through famine and living through abuse and being harmed in war and this type of thing. And those aspects of my body, of the consciousness of my Soma, this Soma, have been really hard for me to work with because they've been so persistently holding on. And so again, the teaching is the same. The teaching is the same. We meet it with love. We meet it with openness. We do our best to forgive and to bring this body into the present moment. And that's the beautiful thing. As we explore our body, we will find things that are very easy to be awake with, and to be conscious with, and to forgive and to let go. And then we may find other things that are deeply hard, to let go of, deeply stuck, deeply persistent, in their pain or in their holding patterns. Again, this is where we do the work of the Bodhisattva. We sit with, we open to, and we meet it with love and kindness. And of course, an absolute clarity. The clarity is that we are on a path of awakening. The clarity is that Kundalini is flowing through us. And we need to soften and trust and open and not fear. The clarity is that, oh, look, there's trauma in me. It doesn't even belong to me. Maybe it belongs to my ancestors. And I need to meet this with love. I need to be soft. I need to connect this form with safety. And so for most of us on the path, we'll find there's periods of time when we need a lot of time in silence. And some people think of time in silence as sitting with their thoughts and driving themselves crazy. And so they don't want to experience that. So they pick up their phone and maybe it's quiet, but they're just scrolling through their phone in some disassociated state. That's not silence. That's not silence. I have, like one of my good friends, he's a native and he literally, he lives out in the desert and he's steeped in silence. There's this depth of silence. That's one of the things I really enjoy, just going out into the desert with him and being in the absolute silence of the night sky, absolute silence of the deep blue sky, to be out in the desert and get on like geologic time. It's just like you can see just millions and millions of years of just silence here in a valley. And you're sitting in that, you're steeped in that. And fortunately for us, there is no cell signal out there. So like you can't even play with the phone. It's like you can take a picture, but beyond that, like there's nothing going on that phone. And so you are with the moment. And our body, through eons, is hardwired to be in silence, to be in nature, to have the healing vibrations of nature, the ions of nature, the silence of nature, the immensity of nature, that most of us are so utterly disconnected from this. And so one of the great gifts we can give our body every day is making sure we get some time in nature. And if you live in a city, which I can't even imagine doing, living in a city, but if you happen to live in a city, that means we need to have some time in the park. We need to have some time walking. We need to have some time breathing in the air, connecting with the sky to help our body relax so it can receive this energy. We can be a fit conduit for this energy. Because at the end of the day, like when we feel into the depth of the consciousness of our Soma, our body, it is literally the same consciousness of that of the earth. That's why it's so healing to spend time in nature. But in this modern age, we're trying to make it so our body is irrelevant and, just live in just such a cyber world reality. And then that's going to create a lot of confusion for your nervous system, for your Soma, and for this interplay between the Kundalini and the body.